Alright, today we're going to talk about finding and using slopes of lines, which is a review from your algebra class. Alright, so slope of a line, if you remember, is denoted with the lowercase m, print m, and the equation is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Some other terms or phrases we use for slope other than the lowercase m, rate of change. Change in y divided by change in x. And lastly, you may have heard the term or phrase rise over run. Those are all ways to identify slope. Okay? Now, positive slope. Just like when you read a book from left to right. Okay? Same thing is, that is how we read a graph, from left to right. So to determine whether or not a line has positive slope, we're reading it from left to right. What is it doing? To be positive, it needs to be going up. Okay, it doesn't matter how steep it is, as long as it is going up from left to right. Those would be two examples of lines that have positive slope. Negative slope, same thing. Reading left to right, negative meaning going down. Alright, so our graph would look like something to this effect. And again, the steepness is not determined, or we don't know that yet right now. But right now, both those lines have negative slope. If a line has no slope or zero slope, okay, that ends up being a horizontal line. And when you do your slope equation, you get 0 divided by some number. And you can determine that when you have your coordinates, the y values are the same for your 2 points. Now, for that example, if you had, the point 3, 4, and you have the point 2, 4, okay, the y values are the same. That is a horizontal line because you get 0 in the numerator divided by some number. All right, y value is the same. That has no slope or 0 slope. Undefined slope. That is a vertical line. And that you get when you do your slope equation. You get a number, some number, divided by 0. Which is undefined. You plug that into your calculators, take any number divided by 0, you get undefined or you get an error on your calculator. Your calculator can't do it. Because what have you been told your whole life when you're dealing with fractions? You can't divide by 0. And you can't. Alright? So we get this, that's an undefined slope. It's a vertical line. So how do you know that? Well, similar to this one, horizontal lines, the y values are the same. For a vertical line, the x values are the same. Alright, so you could have, for an example, negative 5, 1, negative 5, 10. Okay, that is a vertical line which has undefined slope. Slopes of parallel lines, when lines are parallel. Alright, in a coordinate plane, two non-vertical lines are parallel if and only if. That's a biconditional, meaning a two-way street. It's got to work both directions. Alright, if and only if they have the same slope. Now, one that does not fit that definition, vertical lines. Alright, because you're divided by 0, it's undefined slope. So anytime you have vertical lines, they are always parallel as well. Perpendicular lines. Slopes of perpendicular lines. In a coordinate plane, two non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if the product of their slopes is -1. Horizontal and vertical lines are always perpendicular. You will not be able to multiply those slopes together and get -1 though. Since this one is 0 and that one is undefined, You clearly can't multiply those two together to get negative 1. Alright, but when you have a horizontal line and a vertical line, you know that they are perpendicular. And we show that with this equation here. The slope of line 1, m sub 1 times m sub 2, the slope of line 2, equals negative 1. Alright, for instance, we have line 1, negative 3, 1, and negative 7, negative 2. You can draw a line between those 2 points. Line 2, 2, negative 1, and 8, 4. Again, we can draw a line between those 2 points. Alright, we want to identify, do we have parallel lines, perpendicular lines, or neither? Just to reiterate or reaffirm what we just got done talking about, parallel lines, the slopes are equal. And perpendicular lines, the product of their slopes is negative 1. Okay? And to refresh our memory a little bit, how do we find slope again? That's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, so finding the slope of line 1 here. The slope of line 1 is going to equal, subtract the y's. So I got negative 2 minus 1 divided by, I started with this y value, I have to start with its partner, this x value. So negative 7 minus negative 3. Okay, we subtract a negative, we got to add the opposite. We get negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. Negative divided by negative is positive, so we get 3/4. Slope of line 2. Again, changing the y divided by changing the x's. So I got 4 minus a negative 1 divided by 8 minus 2. Again, subtracting a negative, we add the opposite. So 4 plus 1 is 5 divided by 8 minus 2 is 6. 5/6. So slope of line 1 is 3/4, slope of line 2 is 5/6. Are the lines parallel? No, because they're not the same, right? 3/4, 5/6, they're not the same. Are the lines perpendicular? Well, if we multiply the two slopes together, are we going to get a negative 1? Don't do the calculation. Look at it. A positive times a positive. Are you ever going to get a negative? No, you're not. So are these lines perpendicular then? No. So they are neither. They're not parallel. They're not perpendicular. Okay? Now, if you do multiply them, because you don't recognize you have positive times positive, that's fine. You get 3/4 times 5/6. You know, and the question is, does it equal negative 1? Well, how do you multiply fractions again? Multiply the numerator. 3 times 5 is 15. And then multiply the denominators. 4 times 6 is 24. And do you get negative 1? Obviously you don't. Okay, but just a refresher on how to multiply fractions. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. So again, to reiterate, line 1 and line 2 are not parallel and they're not perpendicular. They just simply intersect. Here, if I have point 3, negative 2, and I have slope 2/5, can I graph the line that goes through that point and has that slope on the coordinate plane? Alright, so point 3, negative 2, go to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, and then down 2, 1, 2. There's point P. Now, how do I graph the line? Because through one point, how many lines can we draw? Infinitely many, right? You can draw any line you want to go through that point. Okay, now, we need a specific line. We need the line that has this slope, 2/5. How do we do that? Well, if we remember the very first page, slope can be defined as rise over run. So we want to rise 2 from here, and we want to run 5. So I rise 2. 1, 2. And I want to run 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my point. Can you draw a line between 2 points now? Yes, we can. There's my rise, there's my run. And again, you can go the opposite way. You can go down 2, and you can run -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -5, -2. Going down 2 and negative. And negative divided by negative is a positive. Alright? So you can go either directions. You can go down or you can go up. And again, it's rise over run. So now we have the line that goes through point P, which is 3, -2, and it has a slope of 2/5. Now, I would like you to try these 2 examples here. Put these in your notes and we'll bring these to class tomorrow and we will talk about these. Alright, use the graph in example 1 here. Find the slope of the line. So for problem 1, find the slope of line B. Line B is the green line here. Alright, this green line. I guess there are 2 of them here. This one. And then for problem 2, find the slope of line C. Here. Alright? So please come to class with those 2 problems. You may need to pause. Okay, here's the second one. Actually, 2 sets of problems here. First one, line M passes through -1, 3, and 4, -1. Line T passes through -2, -1, and 3, -3. Are the 2 lines parallel? Explain how you know. So do that in your notes. Please come to class either with the answer or with questions. And then the last one I want you to do, line N passes through 0, 2, and 6, 5. Line M passes through 2, 4, and 4, 0. Is N perpendicular to M? The upside down T again means perpendicular. Alright, so is line N perpendicular to line M? And please explain. Thank you, and I'll have a great conversation with you in class tomorrow.